Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Yes.
And this time,
Huh?
we're tackling something that's pretty important to a lot of people out there.
Absolutely.
We're going to be looking at data in schools.
Yeah.
So to guide us on this journey,
Mm-hmm.
we're using a blog post
Okay.
written by Timothy Lynch, who is an education expert.
All right. Sounds good.
So this can be a really overwhelming topic,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
just thinking about all the numbers and the scores.
But if you think about it just from the perspective of a teacher,
Yeah,
you're trying to create the best learning environment possible, or
Right.
you're a parent and you're just trying to figure out how your kid is doing.
mm-hmm.
And then on top of all of that, you get bombarded with test scores and assessments and all sorts of data points.
Yeah, it can be confusing.
It can be a lot to
Mm.
process.
And that's where Lynch's expertise
Mm-hmm.
really comes in handy because he goes into detail about what makes data reliable,
Okay.
which is extremely important.
Yeah, I'd say so.
He points out that since 2017,
Okay.
England's Office for Standards in Education,
Mm-hmm.
which is also known as Ofsted,
Yeah.
they've really shifted their focus to evidence-led practices.
What is that?
So they're putting a big emphasis on data
Okay.
to inform how schools are evaluated.
Okay.
So essentially they're
Yeah.
saying decisions need to be based on solid research
Mhm.
and data,
Gotcha.
not just intuition or tradition.
So it's moving away from just the way we've always done it
Exactly.
and moving toward, what does the evidence tell us?
Right. And this impacts everything from what's taught in the classroom to how teachers are trained.
Oh, wow.
So it's a pretty significant change.
So instead of just saying, well, we've always taught fractions this way, now it's more like,
Yeah.
okay, well, what actually works best for students when it comes to fractions?
Yeah, what does the research say?
Right.
What does the data show?
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
What's that?
Not all data
Oh.
is created equal. And Lynch really emphasizes the importance of validity.
Okay.
Validity.
And he even quotes Ofsted's definition
Oh, wow.
of validity. He says validity is the extent to which judgments assess what they're supposed to.
Okay.
So let me give you an example.
Yeah.
Imagine you're a math teacher
Okay.
and you're trying to gauge your students' understanding of fractions.
Uh-huh.
A valid assessment would actually measure that skill.
Right.
So maybe through problem-solving tasks
Right.
or real-world applications.
Gotcha.
But an invalid assessment might test them on fractions before they've even learned the material.
Oh, like a
Yeah.
pre-test or something like that.
Yeah. And that wouldn't give you an accurate picture of
Yeah.
their abilities.
For sure.
So it's not just about collecting data.
Right.
It's about making sure that the data you're gathering actually reflects what you're trying to measure.
Okay, I got it.
And that brings us to a particular type of assessment that Lynch highlights as being potentially problematic.
Okay.
And these are baseline assessments. Baseline assessments.
Yeah. And these are usually given at the very beginning of a school year,
Mm-hmm.
often before teachers have had a chance to even introduce new concepts.
Oh, so you're kind of testing them on stuff they
Right.
haven't learned yet?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like you're setting them up to fail.
Oh, so that's what they mean by baseline.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And Lynch's research shows that these assessments can actually have a negative impact,
Oh, wow.
especially for students who are already feeling anxious or behind,
Yeah.
because it just adds to that feeling of, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
I don't know this stuff.
Like it just reinforces that feeling.
Exactly. And it can really damage their confidence and motivation.
And that's not what we want.
It's the opposite of what we want.
Right.
And then there's this other layer to this data dilemma.
Okay.
And that's what Lynch calls perverse incentives.
Reverse incentives. Okay.
So there's all this pressure on schools to demonstrate progress.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah, and sometimes that pressure can lead to some pretty questionable practices.
Oh, like what?
Well, Lynch actually cites a study that found that some schools might be tempted to manipulate baseline data,
So
like to make the initial baseline data look worse,
to make it look worse, why would?
so that later on
Oh.
they can show more progress.
Oh, so it's like,
It's like giving someone a head start in a race.
gotcha. So it looks like they made
Yeah, so they look like they ran faster.
more progress. Yeah.
Exactly. And this ties into the broader issue of teaching to the test,
Right.
where the focus shifts away from genuine learning
Yeah.
to just performing well.
Right. On these standardized tests.
Yeah. And it really highlights how data can be used in ways that don't actually benefit students.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
For sure.
And it really all comes down to using data responsibly and ethically.
I completely agree.
And Lynch's final point
Okay.
is about the importance of data literacy among teachers.
Okay.
He says that teachers need to be able to really understand the data they're given,
Okay.
not just take it at face value.
Right, because you can look at just a spreadsheet of numbers
Right.
and not know what to do with it.
Exactly. It's not enough.
Yeah.
Teachers need to be able to interpret that data,
Right.
understand its limitations,
Yeah.
and really see how it connects to their students' individual needs.
Yeah, so it's more than just knowing how to read a chart or graph.
Right. They need to become data detectives.
Oh, like data detectives. That's
Yeah.
a good way to put it.
Sifting through the evidence, spotting patterns, drawing conclusions
Yeah.
that can actually inform their teaching.
Oh, okay. So they're asking questions like,
Yeah.
where did this data come from? What are the limitations of this assessment?
Uh-huh.
Are there any biases that might be skewing the results?
Exactly. All those crucial questions.
Okay.
And you can't learn that in a one-off workshop.
Right.
It needs to be an ongoing process.
Yeah. It needs to be.
And
grown.
schools need to create a culture where teachers are continually learning about data
Okay.
and how to use it effectively.
Gotcha.
Imagine a school
Okay.
where teachers are regularly sharing their findings,
Yeah.
discussing best practices,
Yeah.
and collaborating on data-driven projects.
That's where the real magic happens.
Yeah, it's where it all comes together.
Right.
But it's not just about teachers, right?
Oh,
Parents and students
okay.
are also stakeholders
Mm-hmm.
in this whole data equation.
Yeah, for sure.
So shouldn't they be part of the conversation?
Absolutely. They're the ones most directly impacted by the data
Right.
and the decisions being made.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we involve parents and students
Okay.
in a meaningful way?
Well, I think transparency is key.
Okay.
We need to move away from this culture of secrecy and mystery
Yeah.
surrounding data and create a more open dialogue where everyone feels informed and empowered.
So, for example, parents need to understand what their child's data actually means, how it's being used, and what it
Yeah.
tells them about their child's learning journey.
Yeah.
They should feel comfortable asking questions
Yeah.
and advocating for their child's needs.
Yeah, and students, too.
Yeah.
Students should have a voice in this as well.
Mm-hmm.
They deserve to know how their data is being used and understand that these assessments aren't meant to judge them,
Yeah.
but to help them grow and learn.
It's about shifting the narrative
Yeah,
around data.
exactly.
It's not a weapon.
Yeah.
It's a tool
It's a tool.
to understand them better.
Yeah, like a flashlight,
Okay.
illuminating each student's strengths and, areas for growth.
Yeah, I love that.
When used thoughtfully and ethically,
Right.
data has the potential to revolutionize the way we personalize learning.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it does.
But realistically,
Yeah.
we know this won't happen overnight.
Yeah, it's going to take time.
So what are some of the challenges
Okay.
schools might face
Well,
in trying to implement this vision of data literacy?
for one thing,
Yeah.
time teachers are incredibly busy.
Yeah.
And it can be really hard to find the time for professional development
Yeah.
and, collaborative data analysis.
It's hard to fit it all in.
Yeah,
And then there's resources.
right.
Not all schools have access to the same technology,
Yeah.
data analysis software or expert support.
Yeah.
So we really need to make sure that these resources are equitably distributed
For sure.
so that all schools
Yeah.
and all students can benefit from
And-
this data-driven approach.
And we can't forget about the potential for misuse.
Right.
We have to be really careful to make sure that data is used responsibly,
Yeah.
ethically, with a focus on equity and inclusivity.
Yeah, data should never be used to limit opportunities
Right.
or reinforce harmful stereotypes.
Absolutely.
So where do we go from here?
Okay.
What concrete steps
Yeah.
can schools take
Okay.
to create this culture of data literacy
Why?
and to make sure that data is used in a way
Yeah.
that truly benefits students?
Well, I think first and foremost, they need to have a clear vision.
Right.
Like, what does data literacy actually look like in their school?
Mm-hmm.
What specific skills and knowledge do teachers need to develop?
Right.
And how are they going to provide the training
Uh-huh.
and support?
Yeah.
And how will they create that culture
Yeah.
of collaboration and open dialogue?
It's not just about setting policies.
Right.
It's about getting everyone on board,
Yes.
administrators, teachers, parents, students,
Yeah.
to create a shared understanding and a commitment
Yeah.
to these ethical data practices.
Exactly. It's not just a top-down thing.
Right.
It has to be.
It has to be a team effort.
A team effort. Yeah.
And this isn't a destination.
Right.
This is a journey.
It's process.
It's about continuous learning, reflecting,
Mm.
and adapting
Yeah.
to make sure that data is used to empower everyone
For sure.
in the school community.
Yeah.
So this has been a really insightful conversation.
Yeah, I've learned a lot.
Me too. And in the next part of our deep dive,
Okay.
we're going to explore
All right.
what data literacy actually looks like
Yeah.
in practice
Okay.
and how it can empower teachers
Mm-hmm.
to make better decisions
Okay.
for their students.
Sounds good.
So we've talked about this idea of data literacy for teachers,
Mm-hmm.
but what does that actually look like?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Like in a classroom?
Right. Like, it's one thing to say, hey, teachers, you need to be more data savvy.
Right.
But how do they actually develop those skills?
Yeah, it goes beyond just knowing how to read a chart or a graph.
Absolutely.
It's about having a deeper understanding
Yeah.
of where that data is coming from,
Right.
how it was collected, and what the limitations are.
Right. And really thinking critically about that data.
Yeah, it's like they need to become like data detectives.
You data detectives, I like that.
Right, sifting through the evidence,
Mhm.
spotting the patterns,
Yeah.
drawing conclusions.
But by asking the right questions.
Yeah.
Like, where did this data come from?
Mm-hmm.
What are the limitations of this assessment?
Right.
Are there any biases that might be skewing the results?
Yeah, all those really important questions.
Exactly.
And this isn't something you can just learn in like a one-off workshop or something, right?
No, it has to be like an ongoing process.
Yeah, schools need to create a culture
Yeah.
where teachers are constantly learning
Yeah.
about data and how to use it.
And sharing their findings with each other,
Yeah.
discussing best practices,
Yeah.
collaborating on data-driven projects.
Right. It really needs to be part of the school culture.
Absolutely. That's
Yep.
where the magic happens.
But it's not just about the teachers, is it?
No?
We've got to remember the parents
Right.
and the students.
They're stakeholders too.
Yeah, they're all part of this data equation.
Yeah, for sure.
So shouldn't they be part of the conversation as well?
Absolutely.
They're the ones most directly impacted by this.
For sure.
So how do we involve them?
Right.
How do we involve parents and students in a meaningful way?
Well, I think transparency is key.
Okay.
You know, we have to move away from this culture of secrecy
Right.
and mystery around data
Yeah.
and create a more open dialogue.
Yeah, where everyone feels informed
Yes.
and empowered.
Exactly.
So, for example, parents need to understand what their child's data actually means.
Yes.
How is it being used?
Right.
And what does it tell them about their kid's learning journey?
Exactly. And they should feel comfortable, you know, asking questions.
Yeah.
And advocating for their children's needs.
Based on that data.
Right.
Yeah.
And students should have a voice in this too.
Absolutely.
They deserve to know how their data is being used
Sure.
and to understand that, you know, these tests, these assessments
Right.
aren't meant to judge them,
Yeah.
but to help them grow.
Yeah, we need to kind of shift the narrative around data.
Yeah, it's not a weapon.
Right.
It's a tool
It's a tool
to help us understand our students better.
to help them thrive.
Like, think of it as a flashlight,
Okay.
illuminating each student's strengths and areas for growth.
I love that.
When used thoughtfully and ethically,
Yes.
data can really revolutionize the way we personalize learning.
I mean, that sounds amazing.
It really does.
But we've got to be realistic.
Right.
This kind of shift,
Yeah.
it doesn't happen overnight.
It's a process.
So what are some of the challenges that schools might face
Right.
in trying to implement this vision of data literacy?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is time.
Yeah,
Teachers are already incredibly busy,
they are.
and finding the time
Yeah,
for professional development and for collaborative data analysis,
it's tough.
it can be a real struggle.
And then there's resources.
Yeah.
Not every school has access to the same level of technology
Right.
or the same data analysis software
Yeah.
or the same expert support.
Yeah. We really need to make sure
Yeah.
that these resources are equitably distributed.
Yeah, so that all schools and all students can benefit from this data-driven approach.
Exactly.
But we also can't forget about the potential for misuse.
Right.
We've got to be very careful
Absolutely.
to make sure that data is used responsibly
Yeah.
and ethically.
With a focus on equity and inclusivity.
Yeah, we don't want to be using data to limit opportunities
Right.
or to reinforce harmful stereotypes.
Absolutely.
So where do we go from here?
Right.
What are some concrete steps
Yeah. Yeah.
that schools can take to create this culture of data literacy
Okay.
and to make sure that data is used in a way that actually benefits their students?
Well, I think first and foremost, they need a clear vision.
Okay.
What does data literacy actually look like in
Mhm.
their school?
Right.
What specific skills do teachers need to develop? What knowledge do they need?
Mm-hmm.
How will they provide the training and the support
Right.
And how will they create that culture of collaboration and open dialogue?
Yeah, it's not just about writing policies. It's about getting everyone on board.
Yes.
The administrators,
Hmm.
the teachers, the parents, the students,
Yeah.
everyone needs to be part of this.
It can't just be a top-down decision.
Right.
It has to be a team effort.
Yeah, a team effort.
Everyone working together.
And this isn't a destination.
Right.
It's a journey.
It's a process.
It's about continuous learning,
yeah.
reflection, and adaptation.
Right. Making sure that we're using data
Yeah.
to empower everyone in the school community.
This has been a really insightful conversation.
I agree.
I feel like I've learned a lot.
Me too.
And in the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
we're going to explore what the future might hold for data in education
That's a big question.
and what this shift towards data literacy could mean for students, teachers, and the whole education system as a whole.
Mm.
We've really spent this whole deep dive unpacking, the complexities of data in schools,
Yeah.
like all the potential benefits and all the pitfalls.
Mm.
And I think now it's time to kind of shift gears a little bit and imagine like what the future could look like
Okay.
if we really embrace data literacy
Right.
and ethical data practices.
I mean, it's a really exciting thought.
It is.
Like what if instead of data being the source of anxiety
Yes.
or a tool for judgment, what if data actually became like this driving force
Yeah.
for personalized learning?
Imagine like a school where data actually helps teachers
Yeah.
create these custom learning paths for each student.
Right. Recognizing their unique strengths and interests and their learning styles.
Yeah, it's not just about identifying, where they're falling behind.
Right.
It's about empowering those students to thrive.
Yes. Catering to their individual needs
Oh,
and
yeah.
aspirations.
I mean, that sounds amazing,
Yeah.
but like, how would that even work,
Yeah.
practically speaking?
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't that just be overwhelming for teachers?
Well, I think technology
Yeah.
can play a really key role here.
Okay.
Imagine like intelligent tutoring systems that can adapt to each student's progress,
Oh, wow.
like in real time, providing personalized feedback
Oh, wow.
and support.
Yeah.
And teachers could use, data dashboards
Oh,
to
yeah.
track individual performance,
Right.
to identify areas where students need more help
Yeah.
and adjust their instruction accordingly.
So they're not spending all their time
Right.
like doing paperwork and entering data.
Right. So,
They can actually spend more time working with students,
yeah, giving them that one-on-one attention,
which we know is so important.
which is so important. Yeah.
And this makes me think of like alternative education models,
Okay.
like Montessori schools
Mm.
or Waldorf schools,
Yeah.
which really emphasize like this individual learning.
Right.
So could data help bring some of those approaches into more mainstream education?
I think data could help us study
Yeah.
and understand which approaches work best for different types of learners.
Yeah.
And then we can kind of tailor our practices to a wider range of needs
Right.
and create a more inclusive system
Yeah.
for everyone.
But I think, like we've talked about, this data-driven future has to be grounded in ethical considerations.
Absolutely.
So how do we make sure
Yeah.
that data is used responsibly
Right.
and doesn't, accidentally reinforce bias?
Yeah. Or
Other-
create inequalities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really important question.
It is. It's the million-dollar question.
Yeah, and I think we have to be incredibly mindful about potential bias
Absolutely.
when we're collecting data and analyzing data.
We can't just trust the algorithms blindly.
Right. We can't just assume
Right. They can actually perpetuate inequalities if we're
Mhm.
not careful.
and limit opportunities for certain students.
Right. So it's not just about the technology itself.
Right.
It's about the values
Yeah.
and the ethical principles that we build into it.
Yeah. It's got to be baked into the design
He does.
from the very beginning.
Right. And we have to be transparent too.
Yeah.
Students and parents should
Yeah.
have access to their data.
Yeah.
And they should understand how it's being used.
Yeah. And we need to have these open and honest conversations
Yes.
about, the potential benefits and the risks
Yeah, for sure.
of using data in education.
It can't just be a top-down decision
Right.
that's imposed by administrators.
It has to be a collaborative effort.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to create a culture of trust
Yes.
around data in education.
I think that's really the key.
It
It's
is.
a lot to think about.
It is a lot to think about, but I
Yeah.
think it's an exciting prospect to think about a future
Mm-hmm.
where data is used to empower every student
Yeah.
and create a more equitable and effective education system.
I think that's the dream.
It is the dream, and I think it's achievable.
Yeah.
If we're
As
careful.
long as we do it thoughtfully
Yeah.
and ethically.
Absolutely.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive
Oh.
on data in schools.
Okay.
I hope you all enjoyed it
Yeah.
and that it sparked some new ideas
I hope so.
and maybe gave you a fresh perspective
Yeah.
on this complex issue.
It's a complex issue for sure, but it's an important one.
It is a really important one.
Yeah.
Data is a powerful tool,
It is.
and we've got to make sure that we're using it wisely,
Yes.
ethically.
And in the best interests of our students.
Yes, always.
Always.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive,
Thank you for having me.
and we'll see you next time.